The pain from my incision still screamed, a hot, angry line across my abdomen, but the real agony was the one simmering beneath my skin. I was 32, barely 2 weeks out from major surgery, and trying to focus on just breathing without wincing. Meanwhile, my younger sister, Sasha, 28, was practically glued to our mother, Teresa, 55, who was gushing about her brand new metallic blue SUV. "Isn't she just gorgeous?" Teresa cooed, stroking the dashboard like it was a beloved pet. $47,000 well spent, if you ask me. Sasha, ever the dutiful golden child, nodded enthusiastically. "You deserve it, Mum. You work so hard." I just lay on the couch, trying to ignore the sharp twinges in my side and the growing pile of unopened mail on the coffee table. Strange calls had been coming in too, numbers I didn't recognise, always hanging up when I answered. When I finally gathered enough strength to mention the late notices and the odd calls, Teresa waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, Nora, you're being dramatic," she sighed, not even looking at me. "You always find something to worry about. Focus on getting better." Sasha chimed in. "Yes, sis, you need your rest. Don't stress over little things." Little things. Right. I decided to ignore them and tackle the mail. It was mostly junk until I found it, a bank statement, tucked carelessly under a magazine on Sasha's side of the couch, where she'd been sitting just moments before. My name, Nora Schmidt, was emblazoned at the top. My heart hammered, not from the surgery, but from a cold dread. I flipped through it, my fingers trembling. There it was. An auto loan for exactly $47,000 for a new SUV. And at the bottom, a signature. My signature. But it wasn't mine. It was a crude, rushed imitation, unmistakable in its forgery. The metallic blue SUV outside, the mounting bills, the strange calls, it all clicked into place with a sickening thud. My breath hitched. They hadn't just stolen my identity. They'd stolen my peace, my recovery, my very sense of security. And they'd done it for a car, for a lie. I looked at the forged signature again, then out the window at the gleaming vehicle. I started counting days. The rage was a cold, hard knot in my stomach, far worse than any surgical pain. But I didn't let it show. Not a flicker. My mother and sister were still basking in the glow of their new acquisition, oblivious, or perhaps simply uncaring about the wreckage they created. I spent the rest of that day and the next pretending to be the same dramatic Nora, while inside I was meticulously planning. The first person I called was Carmen. She's been my best friend since college, 33 now, and the only person who truly understands how my family operates. More importantly, she's a wizard with tech. "They did... What?" Carmen's voice was a low growl through the phone. "Nora, that's insane. Are you okay?" "I will be," I told her, my voice flat. "But I need your help. I need proof. Undeniable proof." Carmen was over within hours, a small bag of gadgets in hand. While Teresa and Sasha were out celebrating another successful shopping trip, Carmen helped me rig my room. We hid a small voice-activated recorder disguised as a USB stick near my bed, and another in the living room, tucked behind a potted plant. "This will pick up everything," she whispered, testing the audio. "And I'll set up a secure cloud drive for you. Every bill, every strange call, every text, document it, screenshot it, send it to me. I'll make sure it's all time-stamped and backed up." I started a physical diary too, a plain black notebook detailing every interaction, every dismissal, every lie. My hand cramped, but I kept writing. A few days later, feeling marginally stronger, I tried a formal confrontation. I sat them down, the forged statement in my hand. "This isn't my signature," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "And this car loan is in my name." Teresa scoffed, adjusting her silk scarf. "Nora, honestly, you're still on about this. You need help. You're imagining things." Sasha rolled her eyes. "Yeah, sis. You've been under a lot of stress. Maybe the medication is messing with your head." They dismissed me with practiced ease, their faces a mask of feigned concern that barely hid their contempt. I watched them, my heart aching with a familiar, searing pain. They truly believed they could get away with anything. Later that evening, after they thought I was asleep, I heard Teresa talking to Sasha in the kitchen. The hidden recorder was doing its job. "Don't worry," Teresa said. her voice low but clear. She'll never do anything. She never has. Teresa's words, she'll never do anything. She never has, echoed in my mind, a bitter mantra. They fueled me. For the next 34 days, my life became a meticulous, covert operation. My recovery was slow, the pain a constant companion, but the adrenaline of my mission pushed me through. Carmen, my steadfast ally, was a godsend. She set up encrypted folders, helped me categorize every piece of evidence. The forged loan documents, the late notices piling up, screenshots of my credit report plummeting, and recordings of my mother and sister's casual dismissals. The phone calls from creditors became more frequent, more insistent. Each ring was a fresh stab of anxiety, threatening to unravel my carefully constructed calm. My doctor had warned me against stress, but how could I not be stressed? My identity was stolen, my finances were in ruins, and the people who did it were living under the same roof, enjoying the spoils. One afternoon, while I was resting in my room, I overheard Sasha talking on the phone in the living room. Her voice was hushed, conspiratorial. "Nathan, babe, I know," she giggled. Nathan Knight, her current boyfriend, 30, was clearly in on it. "Yeah, Mum's loving it, but we should probably trade it in soon, before, get something else, maybe put it in your name this time." My blood ran cold. They were already planning their next move, their next scam, thinking they were untouchable. My anger, which had been a dull ache, sharpened into a cold, hard determination. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about justice. I started reaching out to legal advisors, discreetly, online, explaining a hypothetical situation. I learned about identity theft laws, civil suits, criminal charges. I learned about restitution and consequences. The trap I was setting needed to be airtight. Then one evening, Carmen forwarded me something she'd found while digging through Sasha's old social media, which Sasha had foolishly linked to her current phone. Texts between Sasha and Nathan. They were discussing the car, the mounting bills. Sasha: "What if Nora actually tries something?" Nathan: "Nah, she's always been a drama queen. We just say she's delusional from the surgery. Remember how she was always making things up as a kid? Mum will back us up." My vision blurred with tears of pure fury. Delusional. Making things up. It was the same old story, the same gaslighting, the same cruel dismissal of my reality. But this time, I had the receipts. And this time, they wouldn't get away with it. Day 34. The day the avalanche began. I woke up with a quiet resolve, the kind that settles deep in your bones. My bag, packed the night before, sat by the door. Carmen was waiting for me. We drove to the police station first. I filed a detailed report, presenting a meticulously organised binder full of evidence. The forged loan documents, the credit report, the recordings, the texts. The officer, a gruff but sympathetic man, listened intently, his expression hardening as I laid out the betrayal. Next, the bank. I froze all my accounts, flagged the fraudulent loan, and initiated a fraud investigation. The bank representative, initially sceptical, quickly changed her tune once I showed her the stack of documents and the clear forgery. They assured me they would contact the auto loan company immediately. My timing was precise. I knew Teresa and Sasha had planned a big Sunday brunch, a show-off event for the extended family. My Aunt Sandra would be there, and a few neighbours, including Scarlett Little, who loved to gossip. I wanted an audience. Carmen dropped me off a block away from Teresa's house. I watched from a discreet distance, my phone recording, as the usual parade of cars filled the driveway. Inside, I imagined the clinking of mimosas, the forced laughter, the endless preening. Then the show began. A tow truck, emblazoned with the logo of the auto loan company, rumbled down the street. It pulled up directly in front of Teresa's house, followed by a plain sedan. Two men, clearly repo agents, got out. The brunch guests, drawn by the commotion, spilled out onto the porch. Teresa, mid-sentence, froze, a half-eaten croissant dangling from her hand. Sasha, her face draining of colour, clutched Nathan's arm. "We're here to repossess the blue SUV," one of the agents announced, holding up a clipboard. "Loan in the name of Nora Schmidt, account in default." Chaos erupted. Teresa shrieked. What? No! This is a mistake! My daughter Nora, she's ill. Sasha started to stammer. But it's not. It's ours. I kept recording, capturing every panicked word, every furious glare. The repo men, unfazed, hooked up the SUV. Teresa and Sasha raged, their carefully constructed facades crumbling in front of their horrified guests. Scarlet Little's jaw was practically on the pavement. As the tow truck pulled away, taking with it the symbol of their deceit, a letter arrived via certified mail, delivered by a process server who had been waiting down the street. It was addressed to Sasha. Formal charges were pending against her for financial fraud. Subpoenas for financial records followed for both Sasha and Teresa. Their credit, I knew, was already destroyed. Teresa's eyes, red-rimmed and venomous, found mine across the lawn. "You've ruined everything!" she screamed. But the evidence, I knew, was overwhelming. The aftermath of the repo was a whirlwind of frantic calls and public humiliation. Teresa and Sasha, stripped of their shiny new status symbol, turned their fury on me. My phone buzzed incessantly. "Nora, please!" Teresa pleaded, her voice strained, a stark contrast to her usual imperious tone. "For the sake of family! You have to withdraw the charges. You're destroying Sasha's future." Sasha, alternating between tearful begging and venomous threats, called too. "You think you're so smart, don't you? You're just jealous, Nora. Mom always wanted me happy, not you. You were always the difficult one." I listened to their pleas and accusations, every word recorded thanks to Carmen's setup. My voice remained calm, unwavering. "I'm not withdrawing anything. You made your choices." Carmen was my rock. She stayed with me, fielding calls, filtering messages, and reinforcing my resolve. "Don't you dare waver," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "They did this to themselves." The news of the repo and the pending charges spread like wildfire through our small community. Co-workers at my job, Samantha Stout among them, started asking hushed questions. Samantha, who was usually quiet, pulled me aside. "Nora, I heard what happened. If you need anything at work, any support, let me know. We've all seen how they treat you." Her unexpected solidarity was a small, comforting warmth in the cold storm. But the real gut punch came from Carmen. She'd been digging deeper, cross-referencing old bank statements and school records. One evening she called me, her voice tight with anger. "Nora, you're not going to believe this. Remember when you had to drop out of that art program in college because your scholarship wasn't enough, and Mom said she couldn't help?" I remembered. It had crushed me. "Yeah, what about it?" "I found transfers," Carmen said, "from your college fund. Not much, but enough to cover Sasha's emergency trip to Europe that same semester. Mum took money from your fund to pay for Sasha's vacation. Years ago. The pattern runs deeper than you ever imagined, Nora." The phone slipped from my hand. It wasn't just the SUV. It wasn't just the identity theft. It was a lifetime of this, a carefully constructed narrative of my inadequacy versus Sasha's deservingness, all funded by my own stolen opportunities. The betrayal wasn't just recent, it was woven into the fabric of my past. The discovery of the stolen college fund money was a cold, hard confirmation of everything I'd suspected my entire life. It solidified my resolve, turning the simmering anger into a glacier of determination. The legal battle intensified. Sasha and Teresa, desperate, hired Benson Ramirez, the family's longtime attorney, 42. I knew Benson. He'd handled my parents' divorce years ago. He was sharp, but also a man of integrity. I met with Benson, presenting my meticulously organised evidence. He listened, his face grim, occasionally nodding. When I finished, he sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Nora," he said, his voice low, "legally, you're in the right. There's no defending this. I can't advise them to fight it." It was a reluctant admission, but a crucial one. Benson, for all his loyalty to the family, was forced to pick sides based on the law. Then a call came from a number I didn't recognise. "Nora, it's Weston, your father." Weston Schmidt, 60, my estranged father. He'd been largely absent since the divorce, a phantom figure in my life. "I heard what happened," he said, his voice hesitant. "Teresa called me, screaming. I I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything, for not being there, for not seeing it. His words, though belated, hit me hard. Years of suppressed anger and grief resurfaced. I didn't forgive him, not yet, but his acknowledgement was a crack in the wall of my isolation. He offered emotional support, a quiet presence that was more than I'd ever expected. My physical health wavered under the stress, but my resolve only sharpened. Public opinion, fueled by the dramatic repo and the whispers of the college fund betrayal, began to shift. Samantha Stout, my co-worker, shared stories of Teresa's past manipulations with other colleagues, and the tide turned. People started seeing Teresa and Sasha for what they truly were. The final, desperate move came from Sasha. She sent me a text, a screenshot of a supposed recording. "You think you're so smart? I have a recording of you admitting you forged the documents yourself to get back at us. I'll ruin you." I just smiled. Carmen had already taught me how to analyse digital files for tampering. The audio file Sasha sent was a crude cut-and-paste job, easily exposed. My careful documentation, my mountain of undeniable evidence, had prepared me for every one of their lies. This final, pathetic attempt at a threat only reinforced how truly cornered they were. The courtroom was a sterile, unforgiving space, filled with the hushed tension of impending judgment. Sasha sat at the defence table, Nathan beside her, both looking pale and drawn. Teresa was in the front row, her usual polished demeanour replaced by a brittle, furious mask. Benson Ramirez looked uncomfortable, his posture stiff. When my name was called, I walked to the stand, a calm I hadn't felt in months settling over me. I looked at the judge, then at the jury, and began to speak. My testimony wasn't emotional or dramatic. It was cold, factual, and backed by a mountain of irrefutable evidence. I detailed the forged documents, the plummeting credit score, the late notices, the recordings of their dismissals, the texts between Sasha and Nathan, and even the discovery of the stolen college fund money. Each piece of evidence was presented with a timestamp, a screenshot, a recording. My voice was steady, unwavering. Sasha's defence crumbled under the weight of the facts. Her attempts to portray me as delusional were easily refuted by medical records confirming my surgery and Carmen's testimony regarding the meticulously collected evidence. Nathan, after a brief, pathetic attempt to deny his involvement, was forced to admit his role in concealing the fraud. Teresa, called as a witness, tried to deflect, to gaslight, to play the innocent mother. But her testimony contradicted itself, and the recordings of her telling Sasha she'll never do anything, played in the courtroom, sealed her fate as a co-conspirator. The jury returned their verdict swiftly. Sasha Schmidt was convicted of identity theft and financial fraud. The judge sentenced her to community service and ordered full restitution, a sum that would cripple her for years. Teresa Schmidt was named as a co-conspirator and faced significant civil penalties for her role in the scheme, particularly concerning the college fund. As the gavel fell, a sharp, final sound, Teresa's eyes locked onto mine. There was no sadness, no regret, only pure, unadulterated venom. Her lips barely moved, but I read them clearly. "You've ruined everything," she whispered. The SUV, I later learned, was auctioned off to cover some of the initial losses. Teresa's social circle, once so vital to her identity, ostracised her. The carefully curated world she and Sasha had built around themselves, a world of appearances and lies, had been utterly devastated. I had achieved my revenge, a victory that felt both absolute and profoundly bittersweet. Justice had been served, but closure, that felt a long way off. The courtroom drama faded into the quiet hum of everyday life, but the echoes lingered. It had been several months since the gavel fell. My finances were slowly, painstakingly recovering. The restitution payments from Sasha were a trickle, a constant reminder, but my credit score was rebuilding, and the late notices were a thing of the past. My reputation, thanks to Carmen and Samantha's support, was not only intact, but in some ways stronger. People saw me not as the dramatic one, but as someone who stood up for herself. I was estranged from my entire family. Teresa and Sasha were isolated, their carefully constructed social lives shattered. I heard whispers through the grapevine from Scarlett Little, who now seemed to view me with a strange mixture of awe and fear that Teresa was struggling, her once vibrant social calendar empty, her pride wounded beyond repair. Sasha was working multiple low-wage jobs to make her restitution payments, her dreams of a glamorous life replaced by the harsh reality of her choices. Weston, my father, continued to reach out. His calls were no longer hesitant, they were steady, a quiet presence. He didn't try to force a reconciliation with Teresa or Sasha, only offered to meet for coffee, to talk. I hadn't taken him up on it yet, but the door wasn't entirely closed. It was a strange, unexpected comfort, a belated attempt at connection that I was still processing. Carmen remained my steadfast friend, celebrating my small victories and reminding me of my strength. "You did it, Nora," she'd often say. "You got your life back." And she was right. I had reclaimed my agency, my power. But the victory felt hollow in a way. The satisfaction of justice was undeniable, a cold, clear triumph. Yet the cost was immense. My family, fractured beyond repair, was gone. The years of gaslighting and betrayal had left psychic scars that wouldn't easily heal. I had won, but I hadn't found closure, not in the way I once imagined. I looked around my apartment, a new place I'd moved into, a fresh start, no hidden recorders, no piles of damning evidence, just me, and the quiet resolve to build a new life on my own terms. I refused to mourn the people who had stolen so much from me, not just money, but peace.